Hello, everyone. My name is Victor. I am the Occult Technician, and this is Mind War, Season 4, Episode 2.
Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Join the Mind War today. Enlist at patreon.com/mindwar. Now back to the show.
Welcome back to Mind War, folks. I appreciate you being here. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started. Folks, here in Mind War Season 4, Episode 2, we're going to dive right back into where we left off in the book Far Journeys. This is Dr. Monroe's second book in his book trilogy. We are going to pick up on Chapter 3, and then in the second half of today's video, we're going to go through Wave 3 Freedom, Tape 2, Remote Viewing. Oh boy, folks, that's right. Chapter 3 of Far Journeys is titled The Gateway Program. So Dr. Monroe here is talking about how he started working with a group in Big Sur, California. This was the first time that he and his colleagues started actually working with large groups of volunteers. One of the engineers goes by the name of Bill Yost, and I believe that Mr. Yost is one of the commentators in future waves of the Gateway experience, because Dr. Monroe, his voice is heard on waves 1 through 4. Future waves are done by his wife and I believe his colleague here, Mr. Bill Yost. I just wanted to make note of that here. And now let's get started here again in Chapter 3, the Gateway Program. Not long thereafter, we began to get requests from individuals and other organizations to conduct much more such sessions. Because again, he's working with large groups of people now, dozens of people at a time, and everyone's listening to the tapes together. It says, after reviewing our results, we decided that this would be a very productive way to conduct experiments on such a broad scale that we could certainly not afford to do otherwise, right? So they had just been working with small groups, and they realized they've gathered so much information, and the progress and success was so great. They said, we have to expand this out to other people. Thus, we begun weekend sessions on an occasional basis. We grandly called it the M5000 program on the premise that we could have a magnificent statistical base and a highly sophisticated and well-tuned training system if we ran 5,000 participants through it. The information and experience gleaned from one program would be used to modify each succeeding program in order to maximize the results. So the goal was to have 5,000 people go through this program in order to gain statistics and a better understanding of what they were actually doing. This involved also obtaining trainers to conduct these sessions, no easy task, and converting the system into headphones so that the hemi-sync effect could be fully utilized. So again, he had Gateway experience trainers. Well, again, I am not a certified trainer of the Gateway program. I am your rebel trainer. We're out here, on our own, learning these things. We're doing it through repetition, taking notes, just like they did. but we get the jump start because they've created all this for us. But again, I am not associated with the Monroe Institute or hemi-sync, the organization or the company that has copyrighted the Gateway Experience tapes. I have no connection to them. We are, again, just rebels, outlaws in the exploration of the beyond. This involved, again, also obtaining trainers. After the first few sessions, we realized that it was folly to presume that we could ever reach the 5,000 mark. We also began to recognize that we were creating for the participant a doorway, a window, a gap through which they could achieve other states of consciousness. Thus, it became known as the Gateway Program. So again, he said that they kind of realized that they might not make it to the 5,000 mark, but they did get at least 3,000 people through the program, which is amazing. And the participants, with their reaction and the things that they were talking about, they would talk about things like a doorway, they were going through a window or a gap in reality, and it would allow them to go through that and experience what was beyond. And that's where they came up with the term, the Gateway Program. So let's see here. It says, we developed an exercise whereby the participants simultaneously would be able to move this special mental energy into a visible pattern of light some 1,000 feet above the motel. Okay, so now he's talking about he is working with a group of a few dozen people at a hotel that was near the Monroe Institute. They were able to basically rent out all the rooms, had the headphones for everybody. And in this particular experiment, they were telling them, when you get to this part in the tape, we want you to visualize your energy floating 1,000 feet above you. We want you to project energy upwards 1,000 feet into the air. And these were the results. He says, in the later stages of the sessions, late one night, we put them through the test. The idea was that the combined energy of some 24 individuals might provide something we could see. All external lights at the motel were turned out. The motel itself was out in the country. And by the stopwatch timing, we knew the exact moment when any light should appear above the motel. The four of us went outside and looked up into the darkness. We had plenty of chance to accustom our eyes to the darkness beforehand. So when the signal came at the proper time, we looked very eagerly, but none of us saw anything. So Dr. Monroe and his associates are standing outside of the motel. They're looking up above the roof of the motel into the dark night, and they're saying, man, this is the time in the tape where all 24 of these people are listening to simultaneously. This is the time that we told them to send their energy upwards, 1,000 feet upwards, And they said they're standing there in the darkness and they're not seeing anything. Suddenly, our electronics engineer yelled excitedly, "Look higher, look higher." We did. Most of us had been looking just above the roof of the motel. We now looked farther up into the sky in astonishment. Against the starlit night, there was a soft, red, neon-like waves. So almost like an aurora borealis kind of sighting. They were seeing this 1,000 feet above the motel, just like they had instructed their volunteers to do. They resembled nothing so much as a trickling water moving across an arc in the sky directly atop the roof of the motel. At exactly the time that the exercise called for the light to shut off, it suddenly disappeared. And then 3 minutes later, when the exercise was repeated on the tape, the red waving rivulets appeared again and shut off at the appropriate signal. All four of us observed it and were tremendously excited by the result. I can't verify this. I've never experienced anything like this, but I thought it was very interesting. I thought this was a cool experiment. I hope that it's true. I would love to believe that this type of thing actually occurs, and maybe at some point when our First Earth Battalion becomes big enough, we can do and recreate these type of experiments. And then, if we could get something like that to happen, where we simply just a group of mind warriors listening to the gateway experience at the same time, simply creating a visual of light above them, simultaneously listening to the tapes. What would happen if you then directed that energy? Interesting. Okay, so Dr. Monroe goes on to say, what does the gateway program really do for an individual? It varies so much that each seems to find his own answer. Many, of course, have come on the possibility that they will have an out-of-body experience. Of course, most people go saying, hey, I'm going to have this out-of-body experience, right? Most of the time, this expectation is not fulfilled during the session itself, okay? It takes a lot of practice. We've already gone through an entire season, and we're not even anywhere near having the full out-of-body experience yet. And these folks were just going on the weekend or maybe a week-long training session. So, of course, you can't expect to be able to have these experiences that quickly. This is training that we're doing. We're still in the early phases, right? We're getting a little more advanced, right? Wave 1 and 2, that was the basics. And we're going to get there, but it takes time. Instead, most of the participants said they gain a profound insights and understandings of the purpose behind their being and doing. Not at all unusual are life-changing peak experiences or moments of revelation never before encountered, in which neither cannot nor need to be repeated. Again, I've already warned you. If you start listening to the Gateway Experience tapes, you are going to experience the phenomenon that you've never had before. You're going to experience things you've never realized as being truly possible. And when they do, it's going to fundamentally change your outlook, okay, on life, on what it means to be alive, what it means to have a physical body with a spirit inside of it. You are going to experience these things, and it's going to change you. So be ready. There's no turning back. The program itself teaches the Focus 10 state, mind awake, body asleep. Participants also learn to move into what is called Focus 12, where all physical data input is shut off and the consciousness can reach out and begin to perceive in other ways than through the 5 senses. The action really begins here, where perspectives and overviews change drastically. It is here where the participant truly understands that he is more than his physical body. Again, Focus 10, you know you're in your physical body. It's deeply relaxed. Maybe it's not even fully asleep yet. But in Focus 12, that's where those temporary paralysis chemicals, that GABA-glycine really starts flowing, and your physical body truly just disappears. So you don't feel it anymore. That's where all the pain relief comes from. And that's when your awareness, your perception, your thinking starts to expand outward. And now you're able to think and be aware and perceive outside of your body. The Gateway program thus has evolved into a unique process of self-exploration and discovery and self-help. It first surmounts the fear barriers of the unknown, the change, which seems to be the greatest cultural restraint on individual growth. We fear change. It is what stops us from growing. But we're going to break through that. Think of where you are now as a clearing in a dark forest. That is our conscious. And we're going to move beyond that, right? We're going to move beyond that fear. And with the fear barrier dissolved, one of the greatest gifts to the human species comes into play. Okay. Once we are free of fear, we are allowed to explore our curiosity. With the tools provided, the participant is then free to do as they wish. They accept the authority to do so and the responsibility. Again, you are consciously doing this. You accept the authority, which means you go into these tapes saying, I can and will do these things. I am able to do these things. I am able to have these experiences. You have the authority. You command it. But when you do so, you have to accept the responsibility that comes with these experiences. The individual on his own accord, without suggestion, but through direct experience, begins to know rather than believe that he does survive physical death. It doesn't make any difference what he does during his physical life or what he believes. He will go on after his physical body dies. Survival beyond physical death is not a belief system. Therefore, but a simple fact, a fact as simple and natural as being born. There is no dogma related to the Gateway program, except that when you begin the session, you should seriously consider that you are more than your physical body. Those are profound and powerful statements that you will realize instead of just believing. It will become truth to you that you survive beyond your physical body, that you survive, your spirit survives beyond physical death, that there is more after life. It no longer becomes a belief system. That's the beauty. We've talked about it before. We talked about how our religious teachings constantly are telling us about these things, that there's this afterlife and how beautiful and wonderful it's going to be. But then at the same time, they demonize us when we try to go and actually experience it and prove that it's real. They say we only have to have faith. Your faith is full of lies. It's important for people to experience this. So no longer just becomes a cheap belief, but a true known in our lives. And again, there is no dogma related to the Gateway program. We've talked about it before. If there is one and only one commandment that you must follow when listening to the Gateway Experience tapes, is that once you have experienced them, you have to share your experiences with others. That's the only commandment. That's the only thing that you are required to do. You have to share your story. So throughout much of this chapter, Dr. Monroe reads from some of the different notes that volunteers in his program wrote, after they would experience the tapes, right? And so this one I thought was interesting. It says, this was the most thrilling experience for me was with Focus 15 on increased vibrations. See, we're not even at Focus 15 yet. I felt the energy flow going slowly up and down one side of the other side of my body, faster and faster. I felt I would become a spiral, then a point, and so I did. And as a compact unit, I was flying higher and higher. But then I thought, I cannot go any further, any higher. And in a flash, I hear, "Hey, you limit yourself." And then I said, "Okay, then I will overcome, accept it," and I was off. I felt projected like Sputnik into the universe, into the stars, another entity integrated in the all. Feeling this oneness was an indescribable joy and happiness. This feeling, this connection of being one with everything. It's a very spiritual teaching. We hear it over and over again throughout all the different religions. The men and women who wrote those stories all of those years ago, these are the experiences that they had. And it is not demonic. It is not evil. It is not something that we should shy away from. It is something that we should be gravitated towards and without fear explore and experience on our own. There is no fear here in the mind war. The deep lesson I took from this experience was that although having heard and read many times that we are what we think, that we limit ourselves by our mind, there I was experiencing something unique, at least for me, by overcoming doubts or limitations which I was solely responsible for. So this person, when they listened to this tape, they were able to overcome things in their life, the limitations. The limitations that they talk about was having the full experience of the tape. But once you overcome one of your limitations, you start, it's like a domino effect. All the other things, all the other limitations that you've put on yourself, you have put on yourself, whether you did it purposely to yourself or you just allowed and accepted others to put these limitations on you because of society, culture, religion, politics, whatever it is, whatever nonsense, garbage it is. Once you break down one of those limitations, they all start to fall. And that's when real change occurs. And it says here, we limit our thinking. We limit ourselves by our mind. Folks, we're talking about intuition. We're talking about manifestation, creating change in our life. We're talking about that silly book from decades ago called The Secret that swept over everybody and said, oh, this is magic. This is how you manifest things in your life. This is what we're talking about. Those limits that we place upon ourselves in our minds. You have to tear them down. You have to tear them down the same way you would physically tear down a wall that was built around you in order to gain your physical freedom. Okay, so there's several different stories of different users or different volunteers that you can read through. And let's finish up this chapter here. The last two paragraphs, it says, today the Gateway program is held for a full 7-day period at our center facility in Virginia. Oh boy, Virginia, okay. The center is designed specifically to handle the Gateway program. No longer does one have to lie on the floor for taped exercises. Instead, the center now provides what are called CHEC units, CHEC, which are described as Controlled Holistic Environmental Chambers. Okay. For you, your controlled holistic environmental chamber is probably just going to be your bedroom, where your bed is. That's where you're going to listen to the tapes, right? And in your room, you're going to want to do the very best you can to control the temperature, the lighting, all of that type of stuff, right? And that's what they did here, and they just call them the controlled holistic environmental chambers. And these CHEC units provide isolation, much as we had in our original laboratory booth. Not only are the taped exercises conducted by headphones in the CHEC units, but the participant usually sleeps in these during the night. So if you went to the Monroe Institute, you would actually be sleeping overnight in the same place where you would be listening to the tapes. Again, just like a bedroom. Because it is much like a Pullman berth on the old railroad trains. I'm not really sure what that means. I'm guessing when you would travel by train, you would have a little room to yourself. Some people initially feel that they cannot sleep in there the first night because of the sense of claustrophobia. So these were maybe kind of small places. With the environmental treatment in the CHEC unit, fresh air and temperature control plus sleep sounds were available. The main problem after the second night is trying to wake them up. The isolated sleep has been so productive and restful, it helps achieve such a complete deep sleep that a number of participants have built CHEC units into their own homes. So again, go ahead, make your own controlled holistic environmental chamber. And, you know, if you have the room in your house where your bedroom is simply just where your bed is, turn it into something more than that. Think of it as your chamber. Think of it as a place where your altar is, where you are going to do your healing in there. You know, we heal when we sleep. We physically heal ourselves. And to finish up here, it says, because the Gateway program is so difficult to produce and conduct properly, each year we question the value of continuing it. All things considered, it is certainly not a financial success. Same here. We're not making much money, folks. Again, please visit Victory Work Apparel. There's links in my bio. Although supposedly we are only a research facility that charges the privilege for being a volunteer. Each time we consider closing it down, we receive just coincidentally another report from a graduate who states how meaningful and how constructive that the results have been for their attendance. So we schedule another year of Gateways. So it was very important, even when they were exhausted and they were tired and the money just wasn't coming in anymore, someone would come back and say, hey, that was so important to me. It made such major changes in my life, and they would keep going. So folks, that was Chapter 3, the Gateway program from the book Far Journeys. Okay, in Chapter 4, titled Explorer Team 1, Dr. Monroe says, amid the diversion of Gateway sessions, visitors ranging from psychologists and electronic engineers to ex-flower children with backpacks, male response to the original journeys, we continued our research program with our volunteer group in the laboratory. So now, I think this was back at the Monroe Institute, and they had a small core of volunteers, and these were a group who became consistently more proficient in achieving other forms of consciousness, including the out-of-body state. So again, they kept up with it. They kept the practice going. However, personal events in their lives, such as moving to another city, brought the regular weekly group down to 6. So their core group of volunteers included 6 people, because again, life takes a hold of you and you may get distracted, and things like the Gateway Experience program may take a back seat in your life. I hope not. I hope you can dedicate the time to make it all the way through the program, through all the waves of the Gateway Experience. And then when you do, I hope you don't stop there. I hope you continue to revisit them over and over again and continue to build your skills. This is a lifelong journey. It never needs to stop. He says the 6 people, they were a physicist, electronics engineer, a social services executive, transpersonal psychologist, an office manager, and a psychiatric counselor. I would have liked to use their names, but they didn't want to. Okay, so basically he has a very wide range of educated people in this team. And throughout this chapter, they talk a little bit about what they are experiencing here. And so in this next part, Dr. Monroe talks about how, month after month, the core group of volunteers was exploring the cosmos. He was sending them out to explore the moon, other planets, what's beyond our universe, right? And they kept coming back and saying, well, it just seems void and empty. And so they made a slight change. The slight change into the mantra that we read, into our affirmation, and something amazing happened. And the change they made is where it says here, also, I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my stated desires. So they added that simple part to the affirmation, okay? If you are new to the Gateway Experience and you've come here to Mind War and you want to get started, that's great. You are someone who has deeply desired the help and cooperation, the assistance and understanding of individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than your own. That's what I'm here to do. I've had the experience. I have the wisdom. I'm trying to share it with all of you, right? But that goes well beyond just another person coming into your life. Because what they found was this. It was suddenly as if a curtain had been lifted. Almost every time one of our explorers went into the out-of-body state or simply into an advanced focus 12, they encountered intelligent beings who were more or less willing to communicate and could do so. After several years of finding only barrenness, the effect upon us was overwhelming. we sometimes had difficulty knowing how to handle it. Very interesting. So they go on and say, with that simple change in the affirmation, where we are saying we need help, we need guidance, all of a sudden they started to interact with entities, some type of intelligent entities that were out there in the beyond when we go into this out-of-body experience. Now, I've been very clear. I haven't had experiences with all sorts of entities. The two times where I've actually came in contact with something else. Number one, it is what we're going to talk about here in the second half of the video with remote viewing. I was able to remote view family and friends. The reason I was able to do that is because I knew exactly where they were and what they were doing at the time I was doing the remote viewing. It was very clear. I knew where they would be and what they were doing. I was able to imagine it in my mind, and I saw them. I didn't interact with them, but I observed them. And then the second time was where I felt that I was in the presence of my grandparents. Now, I have 4 grandparents who have passed away, and I felt as if their presence was there with me. 4 different kind of entities, I guess is the best way to describe that. I didn't see them in their physical form as I did when they were alive. Instead, it was just kind of their presence there with me. I could feel all 4 of them. Was it their soul? Was it their spirit? I like to think that it was. Was it some other type of entity or intelligent life form presenting themselves as my grandparents? I don't know. But they were there, so comforting, so loving, intense feelings of love from them as they stood at my side, 2 on each side of me. Nothing to fear, nothing that was scary. There was no transformation or transmission of information back and forth to each other, just an overwhelming sense of love. That's what I felt when I had that experience. So one of the things that we're going to see throughout the remainder of this book as we go through more of these stories from people is they have ran into all sorts of entities and what they consider to be intelligent life forms or whatever. Again, I haven't experienced all that. Maybe I will as I go through all of these waves for the second time. Maybe new things will come up. So some of these stories I am going to skip over because it's their stories. Again, it's like reading someone's dream journal. And whether these entities are real or not, it doesn't really matter. It may, in my opinion, at this point, I still believe it is simply our imagination experiencing all of this. But it doesn't matter whether it's real or not because it feels real. And that's what's important. There's something beautiful about that, okay? So let's see as we go through here. Again, there's several different notes here. Let's see. So Dr. Monroe goes on here to say, an interesting sidelight to this particular routine took place some months later. An explorer usually had a lab session at 5 o'clock on Wednesday. So this is going to be interesting. It plays a lot into the story I just told you about the 4 entities that I believed were my grandparents. And now he's talking about a volunteer who every Wednesday at 5 o'clock would come in to do a session. On this particular Wednesday, she had canceled several days in advance. By coincidence, on that Wednesday, a female psychologist from the Washington area dropped in to visit. So now they had an outsider come in to visit. She'd heard about what was going on. She was, again, a psychologist. I'm sure very educated, probably a doctor, and here's what she says. She was quite skeptical of what we were doing, and we spent several hours that afternoon going over our methods and techniques. So they sat there and talked to her for several hours about what they were actually doing in their techniques, right? Again, it's a lot like you are watching someone on television swim in a pool. It's so much different than actually going and diving into the pool yourself. two completely different experiences. And so they finally said, in order to help you understand a little better, I suggest that you go into booth 2 and lie down and listen to some of the hemi-sync patterns and find out for yourself and see if you have any response to them. So she agreed, fully expecting that there would be nothing unusual about what was going to happen. With her skepticism, I was inclined to agree. So again, she went into this tape with a very skeptical mind. She took the place of the woman who normally, a longtime volunteer who would normally come in every Wednesday at 5. Instead, this woman, this outsider, came in and she said, I'll take their place. Let me try the tapes for the first time. And this is what happened. After about 5 minutes in the booth with the hemi-sync sound in her ears, her voice came through the intercom speaker. She said, there is someone else in the booth with me. The operator, the technician, pushed the microphone button and said, are you sure? Of course I'm sure. As a matter of fact, there are 4 of them. I made contact again. Are you sure there are 4? I can perceive them very clearly. There are 2 at my feet and 2 at my head. The significance of that is when in the previous pages, it goes on to talk about the experience that the woman who normally would fill that Wednesday at 5 time slot, she talked about how over and over and over again, in order for her to go into the out-of-body experience, the first thing that happened was that these 4 entities, 2 on each side of her, would come and stand by her and comfort her and help lift her out of her body. And now this woman is saying that in the very first time she's ever listened to the tapes, she went in skeptical, but she took the place of this woman on Wednesday at 5. And sure enough, those same entities showed up like they routinely did to help her out. Now, she goes on to talk about how they didn't actually, help her out. She actually got kind of afraid. They seemed a little confused, she was saying, because it wasn't the same person that they normally do. And again, she hadn't gone through all the previous training that is required to actually get into the out-of-body experience. But I thought that was very interesting that she also felt these 4 entities, right? So again, this chapter is really just made up of stories like that. I think that was the most profound one. That was Dr. Monroe's team. His core team of volunteers that came back week after week, year after year, and really went into the advanced techniques, creating the Gateway Experience tapes that we have them today. That was chapter 4, called Explorer Team 1. We covered chapter 3, titled The Gateway Program. This was from Far Journeys, Dr. Monroe's second book in his 3-book trilogy. And we are going to go into Wave 2 Freedom, Wave 3 Freedom, Tape 2 Remote Viewing, after a word from our sponsor.
Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War.
All right, welcome back, folks. We are going to go over Wave 3 Freedom, Tape 2 Remote Viewing, Focus 10. So this is remote viewing that we do from Focus 10. We started out the tapes the same way we always do. We go through our preparatory process, remembering our purpose. And once we get into Focus 10, Dr. Monroe instructs us to grab our energy toolbar. Again, I told you we were going to go back to this energy toolbar over and over again. And I like to describe your energy toolbar as your magic wand. So remember, they called the out-of-body experience astral projection. And Dr. Monroe said, no, that's a little too occult, a little too esoteric. We're going to call it an out-of-body experience. And the same thing with the energy toolbar. I think he knew he was working with what magicians and those who practice, say, witchcraft know what a magic wand is. I think he realized that that's what he was doing, but he also realized the scientific community was not going to accept him calling it a magic wand, so he called it an energy toolbar. So we retrieve our energy toolbar, we have it there in front of us, and he walks us through here. Let's see. It's close to us, to our conscious. Okay, so he says we're going to take the energy toolbar and we're going to change it into a tube of energy. So you might think of your energy toolbar as kind of small in circumference. It's solid. You've filled it, you're refilling it with your energy, but now you're going to stretch it into a tube, and now you're going to be able to see through it. It's going to be larger in circumference, and now you're going to start to stretch it out, right? And he says you're going to take one end of the tube and put it into the center of your consciousness. So you're going to be visualizing yourself holding this tube. One end of it is going to go into the center of your consciousness. For me, I picture it inside of my mind, right? And then you're going to stretch the tube out. You're going to push it further and further out. And in the first phase of this tape, we're going to stretch that other end into a white envelope. He says you're going to remember the white envelope. And sure enough, as soon as he says that, you remember it. You start to visualize it. It's floating there because we're only in focus 10. We're in the sleep dojo. Again, the upside down world of Stranger Things, the blackness in front of us. We see the white envelope floating there. And we're going to take our energy toolbar and we're going to put it into the white envelope. And then we're going to, let's see, with the energy toolbar inside the white envelope and the other near end very close to your center of consciousness, you're going to perceive through the tube and read the numbers that are on a white card inside the envelope, okay? This is just practice. This is just exercise. But what we're doing, we've taken our energy toolbar, we've created it into a tube, we've connected one end of that tube into our consciousness, we've stretched the other end out into a white envelope that we view. Inside that white envelope, we put one end of the energy toolbar, and we're going to visualize a white card in there with 6 numbers. And then he tells us, allow your perception to see through the tube onto the card. Read the 6 numbers and remember them. When you wake up consciously, you're going to remember the 6 numbers. I did this tape last night. I remember my 6 numbers. I wrote them down in my notebook, okay? This is part of the exercise. Now he's going to say, pull it away from the envelope, bring it back to you, make it a normal size, and recharge it. So now your energy toolbar is in front of you. You're going to recharge it with your energy. You're going to turn, let's see. So now, still with your energy toolbar, you've recharged it. It's still basically the energy toolbar. You haven't turned it back into the tube. So now you think of yourself holding your magic wand. And he says you're going to visualize a white cotton ball floating in front of you. A white cotton ball. You're going to see it there. And he says you're going to take the energy you put in your energy toolbar and you're going to basically shoot it at this white cotton ball, okay? You're literally going to take your magic wand and shoot energy from it into the white cotton ball. This is some Harry Potter shit, folks. I'm telling you, you're going to visualize it in the same way. You're going to have the power of your magic wand and you're going to send that energy into this white cotton ball. Again, this is just an exercise. The visualization techniques, the imagination techniques, we are exercising our imagination, okay? We are strengthening it when we do these practices. So we're going to do that. We're going to think about the white cotton ball. Think about it so it's very clear. And now with your fully energized, You're going to press it tightly against the white cotton ball and let the energy flow from the toolbar into the ball. Let's see. Energy that makes the ball lighter and lighter. Okay, so you're sending your energy into the white cotton ball, and now it's getting lighter and lighter, and it's floating upwards. You're literally visualizing yourself with your magic wand making the ball, this white cotton ball, float upwards. Leviosis, whatever. I can't remember what Harry Potter calls it, but it's the levitation spell. You're going to visualize yourself making this white cotton ball float as you send energy from your energy toolbar. Then you're going to cut it off and you're going to allow the energy to float back down. Let's see. You're going to charge your energy tool or your energy toolbar again. You're going to press it out against the white cotton ball. Okay, so you do that a couple of times, have it going up and down, but then in the final time, he says, now instead of just sending your white clean energy into it, he says, now you're going to send red, hot, heating energy into the white cotton ball. So now you are sending hot energy, the heat, powerful heated energy into it. And when I did this last night, my entire body warmed up. The bed got very warm. It felt amazing. It was very comforting. Again, it was very pain-free. It was nice and warm. And now I'm shooting this energy into the ball. And you can see it starting to catch flame and starting to smoke. And it's just burning with this red hot energy. Again, it's an exercise in imagination and visualization. Okay, so we're going to cut it off. We're going to pull back the energy toolbar and we're going to recharge it. We're going to charge it again. And then we're going to turn it back into a tube. And now this time with a tube of energy. And now that by this time, this thing is so charged up. We've been using it over and over and over again. First to look into the envelope, then to make the white cotton ball float. We did that several times, bringing it up and down. And then we sent our red hot energy into it. So your energy toolbar is now radiating with heat energy. And you turn it into the tube again, just like we did with the envelope. We're going to place one end into the center of our consciousness, and then we're going to stretch the other end out. And with that, let's see, we're going to stretch it out. Now let the other end, this is where the remote viewing begins. We're going to let the other end of our energy tool tube, our energy tube now, one side connected to our consciousness, the other one extending outwards. We're going to let it move to where the friend is that you are trying to communicate. The friend, the person, the family member that you are trying to visualize, you're trying to see them. You are going to remote view. Again, this is remote viewing. You're going to view them. You're going to send that other tube out, the other end of the tube to them. Okay? He says, let it move far, far away from you. Stretch the tube until it reaches the place where your friend is at that very moment. Now with the energy tube stretched far, far away, the other end very close to your friend or the person you have selected, and the near end close to your center of consciousness, perceive now. Perceive now as information flows from the other end of the tube into your center of consciousness. It flows now. Perceive what your friend is doing. Perceive where your friend is located. Perceive what your friend is thinking. Let all of this flow through the tube into your center of consciousness. Do it now. It's like you are looking through a telescope. We haven't got to the point where we are going to actually travel through the tube. Spoiler alert, that comes in future episodes. But now we are perceiving through it. Again, like a telescope, we are looking through it. But it's not just our sight that is seeing our friend wherever they may be. We are understanding where they are, what they're thinking, what their mood is. We can feel all of those things, and we allow it to come back and perceive it to us, okay? It says, now you are going to remember what you perceive. You're going to remember it clearly and cleanly. You will remember the details of everything you perceive. Now pull your energy tube back. So now you've seen your friend, you've observed where they are, you've absorbed their thoughts and feelings and understandings and emotions, and now it's time to go back. And so now you're allowing the tube to come back to you, your energy toolbar. You're winding it in like you would a fishing pole almost. You're bringing it back in, right? And as you return this energy toolbar, you're going to send a message of contact to your friend. Let the message, the meaning of the contact, let it flow through your energy tube to the person that you contact. Do it now. Let the message be strong and clear and sharp. Be sure that your contact is made as you're pulling in, as you're returning your resonant or your energy tube, right? So you are going to, the only information that you are transmitting is to your friend is that you have made contact with them. You're letting them know that you've made contact with them. Now, personally, last night, the person that I went to visit, for those of you who have been following along with some of my earlier content here on YouTube, if you go to my playlist, My Magical Year, you'll learn all about one of my childhood best friends. His name is Daog. 25 years ago, he joined a Judeo-Christian cult. He is a cult member. He's been with them for well over 2 decades now, and I haven't had contact with him in over a decade. And so this is how I try to make connections with him, and that's what I did last night. I perceived where he was. I know where he lives and what he does on a daily basis because I've spent so much time with him and his religious community, understanding what they do and why they do it. So I knew exactly where he was going to be on a Saturday night. And I was able to perceive, I was able to visualize where he was and what he was doing, and I left contact. Now, I can't just call him and talk to him, or I've tried sending letters, but I haven't gotten any responses back. Again, all of this, you can find that content in the playlist My Magical Year, and in future seasons of Mind War, we're going to dive much deeper into that subject. So for me, I wasn't able to verify if he realized that I was there, if he perceived that I was there, if he received this message of contact. I really hope that someday in the future, when I talk to him again for the first time in 12, 13, 14 years, however long it's been a long time. It's going to be interesting to see if he ever perceived me as being there, as making contact with him, right? Again, so now you're going to pull your energy, your resonant energy tube back. You're going to have your energy toolbar. You're going to turn it back into your energy toolbar, and you're going to stow it away for later because, again, we will use that energy toolbar over and over and over again. So that is remote viewing. Okay, again, we take our energy toolbar, we charge it with energy, we do a few exercises to get it really charged up, to get that thing glowing with white, bright, radiant energy. We turn it into a tube. We take one end of the tube and put it to the center of our consciousness. We extend the other end of the tube as far as it needs to go to find the person that we are trying to observe. And then through our perception, we look through the tube, just like we would a telescope. And we are going to remote view. This is not remote travel. This is not astral travel. This is not astral projection. This is remote viewing. We are going to view and observe what is going on with our friend. We're going to see where they are, what they're doing. But not only that, those physical things, but we're also going to perceive their emotions and what they're thinking and how they're doing, okay? It's very different than, like I said, remote or astral travel, astral projection. Those are two completely different things. We are simply remote viewing, looking into these distances, right? This remote viewing, this is where we get the conspiracy and the lore that comes with the Gateway Experience tapes. You know, the stories that we hear, and we're going to talk about this in future seasons of Mind War, in the later seasons of the Gateway Experience program, where the Department of Defense or the intelligence agencies were training soldiers to use these exact techniques to spy on the Soviets, right? Or any other, country or organization that they thought was our enemy. They would teach these soldiers and train them to remote view what was going on so they could learn top secret information and the stories about what these people were able to perceive and how accurate they are and the important information that they received for national security purposes. Really amazing stuff, right? Again, how true it is, I don't know. Is that something that, is this what we're training for? Not necessarily. Again, the most important aspects of the Gateway Experience tapes that we have to remember, those fundamentals, is this is self-help. We are trying to help ourselves heal the mind, body, and spirit. That's the most important parts of the tapes. That's why we go through the Mind War. And not only once we heal the mind, body, and spirit, then we learn these tools, we practice them, we exercise with them in order to become more and more powerful. And then, of course, Dr. Monroe allows us to return back, or we never left Focus 10. Again, all of this is happening within Focus 10. All of this is happening within the sleep dojo, the upside down world of the stranger things, that blackness where we work with these tools. He says, relax and enjoy Focus 10 for a few moments. It's very important that once we kind of have these intense experiences, that we go back to Focus 10, back to that basic level, and just enjoy the calmness. Let everything sink in, everything that we just perceived, we're going to remember it, right? And then, of course, he wakes us up by telling us to remember the number 1, and we're going to be wide awake and beautiful and happy and healthy. So, folks, that was Wave 3 Freedom, Tape 2 Remote Viewing in Focus 10. I mean, this is what we came here for, right? This is what we've heard about the tapes, the remote viewing, astral projection, out-of-body experience. This is the beginning. This is where things start to get a little strange. We're starting to learn new tools that are pretty advanced, and it just gets better from here, folks. And again, today we went through chapters 3 and 4 of Far Journeys, Dr. Monroe's second book in his book trilogy. I appreciate you all for being here. And as always, remember, folks, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War.